Welcome to the deep dive. We're plunging into some really fascinating material today, aiming to unearth those key insights for you.
That's right.
So today's deep dive takes us back, way back actually, to a classic, Napoleon Hill's 1937 work, Think and Grow Rich.
Foundational stuff.
Exactly. And it's important to say, this isn't just a get-rich-quick book, is it?
Oh, not at all. It's much broader. It's really a philosophy for, well, achievement.
Yeah.
Success in life, generally.
Right, beyond just the financial side. And what's interesting is you can still find this text, like as a free digital download. And the republishers, even now, they believe these ideas have the power to genuinely transform lives.
Still relevant after all this time.
So let's unpack this philosophy together, see what timeless nuggets it might hold for you.
Okay, so where do we start? At the absolute core, Hill asserts that, well, thoughts are things.
Okay, thoughts are things. What does that mean exactly?
It means they're powerful forces. Especially, he says, when they're combined with a really definite purpose, unwavering persistence, and this is key, what he calls a burning desire.
A burning desire.
Yeah.
Not just a casual wish, then.
No, definitely not. It's the bedrock of his whole framework. It's got to be intense.
And the book really tries to bring this to life with stories, doesn't it? There's one about Edwin C. Barnes that jumps out.
Ah, yes, Barnes. His story is quite something. His ambition wasn't vague at all.
Right.
He had this intense, like, all-consuming desire to become a business associate of Thomas Edison.
Not just work for him, but with him. That's a big difference.
Huge difference. And get this, Barnes had zero money for the train ticket to Orange, New Jersey.
So how did he get there?
His determination was just so absolute. He traveled by blind baggage.
Blind baggage? What's that?
Basically, yeah, hop in a ride on a freight train,
Yeah.
illegally,
Yeah.
just to get to Edison's lab.
Wow. That's commitment.
It is. And Edison himself, he later said Barnes looked like a tramp when he showed up. But his expression, the look on his face, it conveyed this absolute resolve. Edison knew people, right?
Sure.
He saw instantly that when someone wants something so badly, they'll bet their whole future on it. Well, they're sure to win.
So Edison gave him a chance.
He did. Barnes was happy to start with, really menial work, anything, as long as it was a step, even a tiny one, towards that big goal.
That kind of determination. It feels like leaving no room for failure. Like you can't turn back.
That's exactly the concept Hill pushes. He calls it burning the bridges behind you.
Like that old story of the warrior burning his ships?
Precisely. No retreat possible. You win or you perish. Barnes basically did that in his own life.
He had to succeed.
Had to. And you see this again with Marshall Field, the Chicago merchant. After the Great Chicago Fire destroyed
He
everything.
didn't want to stay in the fire, yeah.
Right. Other merchants were thinking of leaving. But Field, standing in the ruins, he apparently declared, "Gentlemen, on that very spot, I will build the world's greatest store, no matter how many times it may burn down."
And he did. That store became legendary.
It did. And it stands as like a monument to that state of mind, that burning desire.
Okay, this really makes you think, doesn't it? What does this level of, burning desire mean for you, for your own goals? Is it just, a strong preference? Or is it something else entirely, like a total obsession that just pushes everything else aside?
That intensity is the starting point. And building right on that, the philosophy moves into cultivating faith.
Faith. Okay, but how does he define faith? It's not just religious faith, presumably.
No, not necessarily. He defines it as a state of mind, and crucially, one that can be induced through autosuggestion.
Induced.
Yeah.
You can create faith in yourself.
That's the idea. He calls faith the eternal elixir, the thing that gives thoughts their power. It's the basis for achieving riches or even things that look like miracles.
So it's not passive belief, it's active construction of belief.
Yeah.
Through deliberate thought.
Exactly. Deliberate. And here's a really critical insight he shares. One comes, finally, to believe whatever one repeats to oneself, whether the statement be true or false. He says, if you repeat a lie over and over, you'll eventually accept it as truth. You'll believe it's true.
That's kind of scary, actually.
Yeah.
Shows the power of self-talk, positive or negative.
Hugely powerful. And it goes further. He talks about the magnetic force of emotionalized thought.
Emotionalized.
Yeah, thoughts mixed with feelings, with emotions. He says they act like a magnetic force, attracting other similar thoughts.
So your emotions charge up your thoughts, drawing more of the same energy. Good or bad?
Precisely. The subconscious mind, according to Hill, it's like a lab. It takes any thought impulse you feed it.
Any thought.
Any thought. constructive or destructive, and it starts translating it into its physical equivalent, its reality.
Wow. That leads to that warning he gives, doesn't it? The story about Joseph Grant.
Oh, the bank official. Yeah, that's a sobering one. He died of what Hill calls mental suicide.
No.
He lost some borrowed bank funds and became utterly consumed by the negative suggestion of disgrace. His belief in his own ruin literally, well, killed him.
A really stark reminder of the mind's power, both ways. So how do we use this constructively? How does Hill suggest we build positive belief?
He gives a practical tool, the self-confidence formula. It starts with affirming your ability. Something like, I know I have the ability to achieve my definite purpose.
Okay.
Therefore, I demand of myself persistent, continuous action toward its attainment, and I promise here and now to take that action.
So it's deliberate self-direction backed by emotion and commitment.
Exactly. It's about taking control of that inner dialogue.
Which brings up a question for you listening. Are you aware of the thoughts you're constantly feeding your subconscious? How might those thoughts, positive and negative, be shaping your reality right now, maybe without you even noticing?
And that leads us right into another core idea, dealing with setbacks. Hill really emphasizes that temporary defeat is not permanent failure.
That's a big one. Easy to forget in the moment.
Very easy. In fact, he argues most successful people found their biggest breakthroughs just after a point where failure seemed certain.
So failure is like a test.
He actually calls failure a trickster with a keen sense of irony and cunning. Like it's trying to fool you into quitting right before the finish line.
That story of R.U. Darby, the gold miner, really hits this home, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. He and his uncle were mining, put in a lot of effort and money. Then they just stopped, gave up.
And the gold.
It's literally 3 feet away from where they stopped digging. Someone else found it.
Ouch. 3 feet. That must have hurt.
Can you imagine? But Darby learned a massive lesson. He applied it later selling life insurance.
How so?
He made a vow. He said, I stopped 3 feet from gold, but I will never stop because men say no to me.
Ah, so he turned that pain into fuel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He turned his quitability, as Hill puts it, into stickability. And he became a top salesman, selling millions in policies because he just wouldn't quit when faced with rejection.
That persistence. It's a recurring theme. Henry Ford comes up again here, right? With the V8 engine.
Yes, Ford's determination was legendary. His engineers kept telling him designing a V8 block in one piece was impossible.
And Ford's reaction.
He basically said, do it anyway, go right ahead, I want it and I'll have it. And eventually,
They figured it out.
they figured it out. Because he persisted. That determination was key.
So persistence isn't just something you're born with. It's something you cultivate.
That's exactly what Hill argues. It's a state of mind you build. And it's rooted in definite purpose, that burning desire we talked about. Self-reliance, having clear plans, knowing your stuff, cooperation, willpower, and habit.
Habit. How does habit fit in?
Well, like forcing yourself to act courageously even when scared, to build the habit of courage and overcome fear. Repetition builds the mental muscle.
Makes sense. Like Fannie Hurst, the writer, the book mentions her struggles, right?
Yeah, 4 years of constant rejection in New York, just grinding, persisting, trying to turn her writing into a living.
But she eventually broke through. Big time.
Massively. Got $100,000 for movie rights to a novel before it was even published. That's huge, especially back then.
Wow. And Hill contrasts her with...
With, like, thousands of talented singers just looking for a break on Broadway, but without that same persistent drive, they don't succeed. Talent isn't enough.
So persistence is the differentiator. Hill talks about this hidden guide, doesn't he? Testing people.
Yeah, metaphorically.
Yeah.
A guide testing people through discouraging experiences, and only those who persist, who push through, actually arrive.
Which brings it back to you, the listener. What tests are you facing right now? And how are you choosing to respond? That choice to persist, it seems critical.
Absolutely critical, and often persisting isn't done alone, which leads to another really powerful concept, the mastermind.
The mastermind. Okay, what is that exactly?
Hill defines it as a coordination of knowledge and effort in a spirit of harmony between 2 or more people for the attainment of a definite purpose.
So teamwork, but with a specific kind of energy.
Synergy. It's about amplifying individual abilities through collaboration. He highlights 2 aspects.
What other?
First, there's the economic side. Simply surrounding yourself with smart people, advisors, collaborators for, practical or financial advantage. He says nearly every great fortune has this kind of alliance at its core.
Makes sense. Build a strong team. What's the second aspect?
The second is the psychic characteristic. This one's more abstract.
Okay.
Hill suggests that when minds coordinate in harmony, their spiritual energy units, or whatever you want to call them, they form an affinity. This group mind generates more thought energy than any single brain could alone.
Like batteries in series. More power together.
That's the analogy he uses, yeah. Like a group of electric batteries gives more power than one. True synergy creating something, well, bigger.
And Henry Ford is the example again here.
Yes. Hill argues Ford's biggest leaps happened after he befriended and allied himself with other great minds. Edison, Firestone, Burroughs, Burbank.
Even though Ford himself didn't have much formal education.
Right. It's like he absorbed their intelligence, their experience through this mastermind connection.
Fascinating. And didn't Hill have his own very unique version of this? The Invisible Counselors.
Oh, yeah. That's one of the most intriguing parts of the book. For years, every night, he held imaginary council meetings.
Imaginary meetings.
With who? With historical figures he admired. Emerson, Edison, Lincoln, Napoleon, Darwin, Paine. He'd picture them sitting around a table with him.
Wow. Why did he do that?
His initial goal was self-improvement, auto-suggestion. He wanted to consciously take on the traits he admired in these figures to rebuild his own character.
Okay, that's quite a technique. What happened?
Well, this is where it gets wild. He said these imaginary figures start to feel real. They develop distinct personalities in his mind. They'd offer him advice, insights, encouragement.
Seriously? Like
What-
Lincoln giving him advice?
Apparently, he mentions Lincoln advising him on courage, Edison talking about the nature of energy and life. It became this incredibly vivid internal experience.
Did it feel helpful or?
Profoundly helpful, it seems. He even tells a story about stopping the practice for a while, feeling like it was maybe getting too real.
But then, during a time of global crisis, he had this powerful vision of Lincoln appearing by his bedside, urging him to finish his philosophy, reminding him of his mission.
That's quite a story. It really makes you think, though. Who are the great minds you surround yourself with? Either real people or even just influences you draw on mentally. It's a powerful way to think about growth.
It really is. And speaking of internal resources, Hill talks a lot about imagination.
Right. The workshop of the mind.
Exactly. The workshop wherein are fashioned all plans created by man. He believed we can create anything we can imagine, and that his era was particularly ripe for using imagination.
And he breaks imagination down into two types, right?
Yes, there's synthetic imagination. That's basically rearranging old ideas, concepts, plans into new combinations, like putting existing puzzle pieces together differently.
Okay, most innovation probably starts there. What's the other type? That's creative imagination. He also calls it the sixth sense. This is where genuinely new ideas, hunches, inspirations come from, things that seem to arrive from beyond your normal thinking process.
The aha moments, the flashes of genius.
Precisely. He says this faculty is what marks a genius, and importantly, it's something you can develop through using it, trusting it.
Can you give an example of how this sixth sense might work?
Well, he mentions great speakers sometimes closing their eyes, seeming to tap into ideas from within.
Right.
Or a successful financier he knew who'd close his eyes for a few minutes before a big decision, saying he could draw upon a source of superior intelligence.
Interesting.
Dr. Elmer Gates is another example. He created over 200 patents by literally just sitting for ideas, waiting for insights from this creative faculty. Hill suggests these insights are often better than just relying on limited personal experience and logical reasoning.
What about Edison and his 10,000 attempts with the light bulb?
Hill kind of reframes that. He suggests maybe Edison exhausted all the synthetic possibilities first.
Trying every combination he could think of.
Right. And then finally, the answer came through that creative faculty, that sixth sense connection.
That's a different way to look at it.
Yeah.
Now, this leads to another powerful, maybe slightly controversial topic he covers: sex transmutation.
Yes, definitely powerful and maybe misunderstood sometimes. Hill is very direct about it. He says, sex energy is the creative energy of all genii.
Okay, that's a bold statement.
It is. He acknowledges the desire for sexual expression as the strongest human drive. But the key, he argues, isn't suppression, it's transmutation.
Transmutation.
Harnessing that incredibly potent energy and redirecting it, channeling it into other forms of creative effort, business, art, invention, whatever your purpose is.
So transforming that primal drive into creative fuel.
Exactly. He believes this is what lifts people to the level of genius. He even offers an explanation for why many men, in his view, achieve more after age 40 or 50.
What is that?
His theory is that before that, they often dissipate that energy purely through physical expression. But later, they might learn to channel it, leading to their biggest achievements.
So it's about conscious redirection of a powerful life force.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And he connects this energy to personal magnetism, too.
Magnetism, like charisma.
Yeah, making people influential, persuasive.
Hmm.
Especially in sales or public speaking, he says master salesmen transmute that sex energy into sales enthusiasm.
Interesting connection. And he also talks about the influence of women.
Oh, profoundly. He states, man's greatest motivating force is his desire to please women, and that men who achieve great things often do so, quote, mainly to satisfy their desire to please women.
It's a very 1937 perspective, perhaps, but the core idea is about powerful motivation.
Right. The underlying point is about harnessing deep, powerful motivators.
So, connecting this back to the bigger picture, how might understanding and consciously channeling these really strong, often unseen forces, imagination, intuition, even this intense life energy, how might that unlock new levels of creativity and, well, personal impact for you?
It suggests a deeper level of self-mastery, and Hill does bring it down to earth with practical advice too, especially on marketing personal services.
Right, because most fortunes, he says, start with services or ideas.
Exactly, and he saw a shift happening. He argued that jobs were becoming more like partnerships.
That feels very modern, actually.
It does. He said the relationship between employer, employee, and the public needed to be one of mutual cooperation. The public, he said, is the real boss.
So that old public be damned attitude was finished.
Totally passé, he called it, replaced by, we are obligingly at your service. He saw it in how railroads and even grocery stores were having to change their whole approach to customers.
Becoming service-oriented.
Yes, and central to doing that well is his QQS formula.
QQS, okay, what's that stand for?
Quality plus quantity plus the proper spirit of cooperation. That, he says, equals perfect salesmanship of your service.
The spirit. So it's not just what you do or how much, but how you do it, your attitude.
Absolutely crucial, he emphasizes. The spirit, the attitude you bring.
And he gives some really proactive advice for actually getting a position, doesn't he?
Yeah.
It's not passive at all.
Not at all. First, decide exactly what job you want, then choose the company carefully.
And focus on what you offer, not what you want.
Yes. Always focus on what you can give, what value you bring. He strongly recommends preparing a detailed brief for your application.
A brief, like a proposal.
Kind of. Include your education, experience, references, a photo, but most importantly, clearly state your specific qualifications for the particular job you're targeting. Show you've done your homework.
Makes sense. Show initiative.
He even makes a radical suggestion. Offer to work on probation, maybe even without pay initially, just to prove your value and confidence.
Wow, that takes guts. But it would certainly make you stand out.
Definitely. And research the company thoroughly. Understand their business, their challenges. A planned, strategic presentation like this, he argues, can help you bypass starting at the very bottom.
Accelerate your career path.
Right. He gives examples, like a mother helping her son prepare a detailed personal service sales plan that landed him a junior executive role, setting his own salary, or a guy named Stuart Austin Weir who switched careers to law later in life through focused study and planning.
So what really stands out to you here?
Yes.
Especially thinking about how things are today.
Well, that core idea of getting without giving leading to bad outcomes like the depression he wrote during feels incredibly relevant. The emphasis on delivering real value, being proactive, strategic, it's timeless advice for navigating your career.
It really is. It's about demonstrating your worth. Okay, so finally, we need to talk about fear.
Ah, yes. The 6 ghosts of fear, as he calls them.
6 ghosts. What are they?
Poverty, criticism, ill health, loss of love, old age, and death.
Pretty comprehensive list of human anxieties.
Indeed. And he points out their insidious starting point, indecision.
Indecision breeds fear.
That's his argument. Indecision is the seedling of fear. He says indecision hardens into doubt, and then the two blend together and become fear. And it happens subtly, often unnoticed.
Sneaks up on you. And which fear does he rank as the worst?
The fear of poverty. He puts it right at the top, most destructive.
Why that one specifically?
He connects it to a historical tendency for people to, well, prey on each other economically. He says poverty brings not just suffering, but deep humility, a crushing of the spirit.
And he describes how these fears show up, right? The symptoms.
Yes, very clearly. Indecision itself. Doubt, which manifests as making excuses, finding alibis, envy, criticism, worry showing up as fault-finding, maybe intemperance, lacking self-reliance, and overcaution, always finding reasons not to act, waiting for the perfect time that never comes.
Okay, so if these fears are so pervasive, and start with indecision, what's the antidote? How do you fight back?
It's remarkably simple yet powerful. The antidote is prompt and firm decision.
Decision. Just making a choice and sticking to it.
Exactly. Taking decisive action. He uses that stark example of the man condemned to the electric chair.
Right. Tell us about that again.
Once the man finally accepted his fate, made the decision to face it, he became calm, found peace, even ate a hearty last meal. The decision itself ended the torment of uncertainty and fear.
That's incredible, the power of just deciding.
It is, and he links this to history, too. The Declaration of Independence, 56 men making an incredibly momentous, dangerous decision.
Putting their lives on the line.
Absolutely. It required immense faith and courage, but that collective mastermind decision, Hill argues, is what ultimately ensured the success of Washington's armies and birthed the nation.
Wow. And Ford again, his decisiveness.
Ford's habit of making decisions quickly and firmly is presented as a cornerstone of his success. Decision, Hill concludes, stops you from just passively accepting things you don't want. It conquers worry, it brings poise, peace of mind, action follows decision.
So this whole deep dive into Think and Grow Rich, it really lays out a comprehensive roadmap, doesn't it? It's definitely not about just sitting back and hoping.
Not at all. It's active. It requires persistence, intelligence, and applying these specific principles together.
We've covered a lot. That burning desire, building faith through autosuggestion, persistence over temporary defeat, the synergy of the mastermind.
The power of imagination, the sixth sense, channeling that core energy, marketing yourself strategically.
Right. And conquering fear through decision. The real secret seems to be not one single thing, but how all these pieces fit together and your readiness to actually use them.
Absolutely. And the text itself is quite direct about the context. It suggests America offers the opportunity for anyone honest to achieve wealth, and if you don't like the system, well, you're free to leave.
A product of its time, perhaps, but the underlying economic principle he highlights is about exchange.
Yes, the law of economics, as he puts it, that getting without giving just doesn't work long term. True achievement, according to this philosophy, comes from providing value, making clear decisions, and pushing through challenges.
So the final thought for you, listening. Hill famously quotes Henley, "You are the master of your fate, the captain of your soul." Why? Because you have the power to control your thoughts. So the question is, what specific thought, what idea, what challenge will you choose to truly master and then transmute into your own reality starting today?